Welcome, cherished listeners, to our mesmerizing Miss Marple audiobook series, where the astute elderly sleuth from St. Mary Mead deciphers the darkest riddles with her extraordinary grasp of human frailties. Today, we voyage into Miss Marple's sinister Caribbean curse, a tropical thriller of ancient artifacts, family vendettas, and murders masquerading as supernatural doom on a sun-soaked island paradise. Envision this. Amid swaying palms and turquoise waves, Miss Marple arrives for a serene holiday, only to stumble upon a chilling scream and a body washed ashore, clutching a bloodied talisman, igniting whispers of a deadly family curse. As accidents mount with poisoned drinks and ghostly apparitions, the detective peels back layers of jealousy, hidden heirs, and vengeful pacts. But when the final curse strikes, Miss Marple's brilliant twist exposes the killer's cunning scheme. Paradise awaits. But beware the shadows. Chapter 1. The tropical omen. The Caribbean sun hung low in the sky like a molten medallion, casting a golden haze over the turquoise waters that lapped lazily at the white sands of St. Honoré. Palm fronds swayed in the gentle trade winds, whispering secrets to anyone who cared to listen, while distant calypso rhythms drifted from a beachside bar, mingling with the cries of colorful parrots flitting through the canopy. Miss Jane Marple stepped off the small propeller plane onto the tarmac, her sensible shoes crunching on the warm asphalt, her straw hat shielding her eyes from the glare. She had come at the insistence of her old acquaintance, Major Palgrave, whose letter had painted the island as a paradise of rest and recuperation after the damp chill of an English winter. "Come, Jane," he had written, "the air here revives the soul, though shadows linger in the palms." A jeep awaited her, driven by a local man with a smile as wide as the horizon, his skin bronzed by the endless sun. "Miss Marple? Welcome to paradise. Major Palgrave sends regards. He's at the Golden Palm Hotel." The drive wound through lush hillsides dotted with vibrant hibiscus and bougainvillea, the road curving like a serpent's spine toward the coast. Miss Marple absorbed it all. The salty tang in the breeze, the flash of iridescent hummingbirds, the distant rumble of waves like nature's own applause. Yet her keen instincts prickled. Paradise often hid serpents in its gardens. The Golden Palm Hotel emerged like a colonial dream, its white verandas overlooking a crescent bay where yachts bobbed like elegant swans. Porters in crisp uniforms whisked her luggage away, and Major Palgrave greeted her in the lobby, a rotund figure in khaki shorts and a pith helmet, his face flushed from the heat or perhaps a midday tipple. "Jane, old girl, delighted you're here. The place is buzzing with characters. You'll love it." He led her to the terrace for tea, where rattan chairs overlooked the sea, and waiters glided with trays of iced drinks garnished with exotic fruits. As they settled, conversation flowed like the nearby stream. Palgrave's tales of military exploits, Miss Marple's anecdotes from St. Mary Mead, but his eyes held a glint of something unsaid. "This island's got history," he confided, leaning in. "The old plantation up the hill, cursed, they say, belonged to the Tim Kendall family. Deaths plague them, drownings, falls, poisons mistaken for tropical fevers." Miss Marple's interest sparked. Cursed or convenient accidents? Palgrave chuckled. Convenient for some. The current owner, Molly Kendall, throws lavish parties, but whispers abound. Ancient artifact dug from the sands, bringing doom. Their chat was interrupted by the arrival of the expatriates. Evelyn Hillingdon, a flamboyant hostess with a laugh like shattering glass, her sundress a riot of tropical prints. Edward Hillingdon, a brooding archaeologist with sun-leathered skin and eyes shadowed by untold digs, and Rosalie Otterbourne, a secretive maid whose uniform hid a grace that spoke of hidden depths. Evelyn plopped down uninvited. "Major, and this must be your friend from England. Welcome to our little Eden, though serpents lurk." Her words hung, laced with mirth or malice. As tea progressed, Miss Marple observed Evelyn's flirtatious glances at Edward, his distracted nods toward the plantation hills, Rosalie's furtive adjustments to her apron pocket. "The curse," Evelyn elaborated, "started with old man Kendall slain by a rival over buried treasure. Now every heir meets a grim end." Edward scoffed. "Superstition. My digs uncovered the artifact. A jade idol, eyes like emeralds. Cursed? Bah. Valuable. Yes," Rosalie whispered. "Valuable enough to kill for." As twilight descended, painting the sky in fiery strokes of crimson and indigo, a chilling scream echoed from the beach below, a raw primal wail that sliced the balmy air like a blade. The group rushed to the railing, peering down where waves foamed against the shore. A figure lay sprawled in the surf, the water tinged red around it. "Good Lord," Palgrave muttered. They hurried down the steps, sand shifting underfoot like treacherous allies. The victim was Tim Kendall, Molly's husband, his body washed ashore with a bloody talisman, a carved jade piece. Clutched in his rigid hand, a deep gash across his throat, blood mingled with seawater, staining the sand in macabre patterns. Evelyn gasped. Edward knelt to check for life. Rosalie crossed herself. "The curse," someone cried from the gathering crowd. Miss Marple approached carefully, her hat brim shading her eyes from the dying sun. "Curse or calculation. The wound, clean, from a sharp blade. And the talisman, placed post-mortem, I'd wager." Her observation calmed the panic slightly, but whispers swirled like the incoming tide. Police arrived, local officers in starched uniforms, their flashlights bobbing like will-o'-the-wisps. "Drowned or murdered?" the lead inspector queried. Miss Marple pointed to the blood, viscous, not fully congealed. Paint, ritual red, from a local festival perhaps, a ruse to invoke the curse. Edward frowned. "Paint, but the gash is real." Poirot. "Wait," Miss Marple nodded. "Real, but the talisman, its edges clean, no sand grit, placed after death." The inspector's notebook flipped open. "Motive, the plantation's in debt, curse scares buyers away." Rosalie murmured. "Or attracts treasure hunters." Their testimonies followed. Evelyn at the bar, Edward on a dig, Rosalie in the kitchens. Miss Marple's mind catalogued inconsistencies. The paint's fresh scent on Edward's cuff, Evelyn's smudged lipstick like ritual marks, Rosalie's apron pocket bulging oddly. As night fully claimed the beach, stars emerging like scattered diamonds, Miss Marple reassured the group. "Panic feeds the curse. Let us timeline. Scream at twilight. Body discovered immediately. Rosalie, your kitchen overlooks the path. You saw no one." She shook her head, but Miss Marple noted her hesitation. Probing gently, she uncovered Rosalie's brief absence for herbs, aligning with the timeline but clearing her of opportunity. "You are innocent of this act, my dear. Return to duties. Light awaits." A momentary haven formed. Fears tempered, alliances eyed tentatively. Palgrave clapped Miss Marple's shoulder. "You've steadied us." The sleuth gazed at the starlit sea. "Steadied, yes, but the shadows deepen, a sanctuary shadowed further." The Caribbean night settled, waves murmuring below. Miss Marple's watch began, the chapter's omens bridged, dynamic perils whispering toward the reef's depths. Chapter 2. Shadows of Betrayal. The first light of dawn crept through the heavy curtains of Lord Edgware's mansion like a thief. casting long, wavering shadows across the polished oak floors and illuminating the faint dust motes that danced in the air like unspoken accusations. The house, with its labyrinth of corridors and rooms filled with the echoes of past grandeur, seemed to hold its breath, the silence broken only by the distant tick of a grandfather clock and the soft patter of rain against the leaded windows. Hercule Poirot had spent the night in vigilant wakefulness, his little grey cells churning through the night's events, the enigmatic invitation, the blood-smeared note that was no blood at all, the undercurrents of tension rippling through the household like hidden currents in a calm sea. He rose early, his routine a bastion of order in the chaos, a precise grooming in the guest bathroom's marble sink, a crisp white shirt buttoned to perfection, and a breakfast summons to the morning room, where silver chafing dishes steamed with kedgeree and toast. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him, his face creased from a fitful sleep, his newspaper folded neatly, but unread. Poirot, that note last night, chilling business, edgewares as unruffled as a pond, but I sensed tempest brewing beneath. Poirot sipped his café au lait, his green eyes sharp as polished jade. Tempests, Hastings. They gather in the shadows of betrayal. We must probe the inner circle today. Their alibis are veils, thin and terrible. Their strategy was meticulous. Interview each member privately in the library, where the leather-bound volumes stood as silent witnesses, their spines a jury of forgotten knowledge. The mansion stirred slowly, servants gliding like phantoms through halls adorned with portraits of stern ancestors whose painted eyes followed every move. First to appear was Carlotta Adams, Lord Edgware's daughter, a vision of restrained elegance in a grey silk blouse, her raven hair pinned in a chignon that spoke of controlled passions. She perched on the edge of a leather armchair, her hands folded like a penitent's. "Father's iron will is infamous," she admitted, her voice a controlled vibrato. "He withholds my allowance, calls me extravagant, but it's his grip that suffocates us all." Poirot leaned forward, his voice a soothing murmur. "Suffocate, like shadows over fortunes and fates. Resentments deepen, mademoiselle." Carlotta's gaze flickered like candlelight in a draught. "Deepen, like the fog over the river at dawn. He silenced competitors, buried scandals, but harm, I'd sooner wait him out." Their dialogue deepened as Ronald Marsh, the aloof secretary, entered, a lanky figure with wire-rimmed glasses perched on a beak-like nose, his ledger under his arm like an extension of his body. "Milord's matters are intricate," he evaded, his tone polished as the mansion's silver. "Portfolios, properties, adversaries lurk like wolves." Hastings interjected, "Wolves with fangs, any pacts?" Ronald's glance shifted like a weather vane in wind. "Pacts, perhaps with rivals like Carstairs, but specifics are privileged." Poirot's moustache quivered. "Privileged or veiled? Your evasive look suggests concealed bonds." As the morning unfolded, Donald Ross, the mysterious American visitor, sauntered in, his accent a drawl thick as molasses, his cigar case a fidgety companion. "Edgware's a tough cookie, deals with my outfit in New York, but he's got foes keener than his intellect." Their stories interwove. Carlotta's muted bitterness over curtailed liberties, Ronald's elusive allusions to monetary machinations, Donald's yarns of overseas competitions. The library's atmosphere thickened like brewing storm clouds, the grandfather clock chiming like a heartbeat, quickening. Tensions escalated when a deadly note was found in the study. Slid under the door during their consultations, stained with crimson that dripped like fresh lesions. Your triumphs return. Curse on your domain, it proclaimed. Carlotta gasped. Ronald blanched. Donald's cigar shed ash like fallout. Edgware, alerted, grabbed it. Curse. From my history, ladies spurned, bargains fouled. Poirot inspected, his gloved fingers cautious. Crimson, blood, non, but pigment blended with tint to imitate. A forgery, sewn to heighten dread. Hastings frowned. Sewn by whom? Poirot's eyes swept the group. By one amidst us, or a trespasser, but the parchment, exquisite vellum from your bureau, milord. Edgware thundered. Mine! Outrageous! But a search disclosed a matching leaf in Ronald's ledger. You! Carlotta charged. Ronald protested. Entrapped. I compose agreements, not maledictions. The American interposed. Maledictions from Edgware's conquests. He's boasted of liaisons, performers, heiresses. Poirot enforced order, his voice a serene harbour in the gale. Dread aids the forger. Let us track the tint's aroma, subtle, dramatic, from a costume emporium. Their probe led to the mansion's garret, a dusty domain of chests and cobwebs, where lanterns cut the obscurity like indictments. A crate of theatrical accoutrements yielded red tint, employed for stage gore. From my benevolence, Gallus, Carlotta conceded. But Poirot's lantern disclosed fresh imprints in the dust, leading to a concealed panel. Behind it, a hoard of missives, stained with a kin crimson, detailing Edgware's indiscretions. Extortion, Hastings breathed. Poirot affirmed. But placed here to incriminate whom? The imprints matched Donald's boots, coarse from American paths. You, Edgware bellowed. Donald's cigar quivered. Placed. I roam garrets for muse. Antique abodes inspire my ventures. Poirot's eyes honed. Muse or incursion, your bonds with adversaries. The chapter climaxed with a showdown in the library, indictments flying like embers from a forge. Carlotta faulting Ronald's dubious volumes, Ronald indicating Donald's alien intrigues, Donald rebutting with Carlotta's resentful stares. Poirot's serenity penetrated the tumult, allies in deceit, but the tint's lot tracked to a boutique near Carstairs' bureau. A wire to the boutique confirmed, sold to an American-inflected man. You, Mr. Ross, Donald wilted. I acquired for a jest, but the missive, not me. Poirot yielded after verifying alibis, Donald absent during the conveyance. Absolved, for the moment. A brief bond of trust emerged, the group partaking luncheon in the dining hall, mirth tentative but authentic. Hastings marveled. You've bridged the abysses, Poirot. The detective regarded the rain-lashed panes. Bridged, yes, but betrayal's murmurs reverberate, a scheme deepening. The mansion lapsed into uneasy tranquility, rain pattering like digits on Vita. Poirot's inquiry intensified. The chapter's shadows bridged, dynamic deceptions murmuring toward fatal facades. Chapter 3. The Fatal Facade. The Edgware mansion loomed under a sky heavy with impending rain, its Georgian facade a mask of stoic elegance that belied the turmoil brewing within its walls. Thunder rumbled in the distance like the growl of an unseen beast, and the air was thick with the earthy scent of wet soil from the gardens below. Hercule Poirot had spent the afternoon in contemplative solitude, pacing the manicured lawns where topiaries twisted into fantastical shapes, lions and eagles frozen in eternal vigilance. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him as dusk fell, his walking stick leaving divots in the soft turf. Poirot, this place feels like a powder keg, Edgware's unruffled, but the others, eyes darting like cornered foxes. Poirot halted by a fountain, where water trickled like whispered secrets. Foxes, Hastings, they sense the hunt. Tonight, we orchestrate a dinner. Facades will crack under the weight of civility. Their plan was elegant in its simplicity. A formal gathering in the dining hall, where candlelight and fine wine could loosen tongues and reveal the fissures in carefully constructed alibis. The invitation was extended via the butler, a man with a face like weathered parchment, his voice a murmur as he relayed the Lord's desire for company amid uncertainty. The dining hall was a cavern of opulence, a long mahogany table set with crystal that caught the chandelier's light like captured stars, silver cutlery gleaming like weapons at rest, and walls adorned with tapestries depicting ancient hunts where hounds pursued elusive prey. Lord Edgware presided at the head, his hawkish features softened by the glow, while the others took their seats. Carlotta Adams, her grey dress exchanged for a deep burgundy gown that lent her an air of restrained fire. Ronald Marsh, his glasses polished, but his hands fidgety on his napkin. Donald Ross, the American, his cigar replaced by a glass of port, his drawl a lazy river in the tense silence. The meal commenced with consommé, its steam rising like veils lifting from hidden truths. Conversation sparked fitfully, Edgware's anecdotes of parliamentary intrigues, Carlotta's wry comments on society balls, but Poirot steered with subtle artistry. "Milord, your dominion inspires loyalty or envy." Edgware's laugh was a bark. "Envy? From whom? My king grovel for scraps." Carlotta's fork clattered. "Scraps? Your will's a noose, father, choking us with conditions." Ronald interjected smoothly. "Conditions protect assets from rivals like Carstairs circling like vultures." The tycoon's name hung like smoke, and as if summoned, the butler announced Mr. Alton Carstairs, a burly man with a face like hammered copper, his suit straining at the seams, his arrival a thunderclap in the room. "Edgware, heard of your perils, came to offer support." His support was laced with mockery, his eyes scanning the table like a predator assessing prey. Jane Wilkinson arrived dramatically midway through the main course, roast pheasant with truffles, her entrance a swirl of perfume and silk, her smile a weapon. "Darling George and Monsieur Poirot, charming to see you again." Tensions mounted as wine flowed, tongues loosening like sails in a gale. Carstairs boomed about financial desperation, Edgware's deals, ruthless, bankrupted my partner, left him desolate. Jane's laugh was crystalline, desolate, like my marriage, a poisoned pact for freedom. George refuses divorce, clings, like ivy. Edgware's eyes narrowed. "Freedom, to chase spotlights. I control the strings." Ronald fidgeted, Donald's port glass emptying faster. The facade cracked when dessert arrived, crème brûlée, its caramel crust shattered with a tap. Carstairs clutched his throat mid-bite, his face purpling, body convulsing in agony as he slumped forward, the dish clattering. "Poison!" Jane screamed. Chaos erupted. Carlotta backing away, Ronald calling for water, Donald pounding the tycoon's back. Poirot sprang up, his voice commanding, "Stand back!" The symptoms, cyanide but faint, antidote, sodium thiosulfate from the medicine chest. Hastings dashed for it, returning with a vial. Poirot administered, Carstairs gasping back to life, his color returning like dawn chasing night. The toxin, diluted to simulate attack, not kill, Poirot declared, examining the dish. In the sugar crust, crystals laced. Jane's hand trembled. "Who?" Poirot's gaze swept. "One who knew his sweet tooth." Ronald protested. "Not me. I served wine." But Poirot unveiled blackmail letters from Ronald's pocket, smeared with red ink, demanding silence on embezzlements. "Yours," Edgware roared. Ronald deflated. Forgeries. I manage books, not threats. Poirot nodded. Forgeries indeed. The ink's composition matches theatre supply, but the script, your hand, milord? No, Carstairs' own, to stage his peril and implicate. Carstairs coughed, his confession spilling like overflowed wine. Staged to force Edgware's hand in deals, but the real poison, not mine. The party exhaled, a respite of unmasked relief washing over them. Wine replaced, laughter tentative but genuine. Hastings marveled. You've saved him, Poirot. The detective gazed at the rain-streaked windows. Saved, yes. But the shadows sharpen, true peril urging us onward. The mansion lapsed into uneasy tranquility, rain pattering like fingers on Vita. Poirot's inquiry intensified. The chapter's facades bridged, dynamic perils whispering toward bloody entanglements. Chapter 4. Bloody entanglements. The afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows of Lord Edgware's mansion, casting long golden shafts that cut across the library like blades of light, illuminating swirling dust motes and the intricate patterns of the Persian carpets underfoot. The air was heavy with the scent of aged paper from the towering bookshelves and the faint, metallic tang of polished brass from the lamps that stood sentinel on side tables. Hercule Poirot had transformed the room into a theatre of revelation, arranging armchairs in a semicircle around the massive oak desk, where a crystal decanter of port gleamed invitingly. Captain Arthur Hastings leaned against the mantel, his walking stick idle for once, his face a mask of anticipation as the suspects filed in. Carlotta Adams, her burgundy gown from the previous night exchanged for a simple black dress that lent her an air of mourning. Ronald Marsh, his glasses slipping down his nose as he clutched his ever-present ledger. Donald Ross, the American, twirling an unlit cigar between his fingers like a talisman against the unknown. Lord Edgware entered last, his presence a storm cloud in the sunlit room, his sharp features set in lines of controlled fury. Poirot, this charade ends now. Your meddling has stirred enough mud. Poirot, seated at the desk's head, gestured calmly to the chairs. Charade, milord. Life is the greatest stage, and we are merely players. Sit. The curtain rises on entanglements that bleed. They complied, the room falling into a tense hush, broken only by the distant chime of a clock and the soft creak of a leather as bodies shifted. Poirot began with Carlotta, his voice a silken thread pulling at loose ends. Mademoiselle, your alliance with Alton Carstairs, the tycoon whose partner fell to your father's schemes, an entanglement of the heart or merely vengeance? Carlotta's black dress seemed to absorb the light, her eyes flashing like embers. Heart, a blaze kindled by shared loss. His partner, my uncle, both victims of father's ruthlessness. We vowed to expose him, but love, it complicated the plot. Ronald interjected, his ledger opening with a snap. Complicated, like my pact with Carstairs, cooking books to hide Edgware's thefts, but fatal. No. Donald twirled his cigar faster. Thefts. My bond was across the pond. Edgware promised ventures, then betrayed. We allied to undermine him. Their confessions interlocked like chains in a dungeon. Carlotta's passionate affair with Carstairs, born from mutual vendettas over lost legacies. Ronald's bloody covenant to forge documents sealing Edgware's downfall. Donald's role in smuggling evidence from America. His cigar case, a hidden compartment for incriminating letters. Poirot's mustache quivered. Covenants bloody with ambition. But let's descend to the cellar, where entanglements hide in darkness. The stairs spiraled down like a descent into the underworld. the air growing cooler, mustier, laced with the earthy scent of stone and forgotten wine. Lanterns bobbed, casting grotesque shadows that writhed across barrels and cobwebbed racks. In a forgotten alcove, shrouded in sacking, stood a grotesque figure, a corpse rigged with wires, its waxen face a caricature of Lord Edgware, limbs articulated to pulleys hidden in the ceiling. "Behold the spectre of betrayal," Poirot declared, tugging a wire. The dummy lurched to life, arms flailing in macabre mimicry of hauntings, a hidden mechanism whispering threats from a concealed horn. Carlotta recoiled. "From the theatre, props for galas," Ronald pointed. "You rigged it to terrorize father into confession." Under Poirot's gaze, Carlotta crumbled. "Yes, I enabled the haunts, supplied the wires for leverage, but the threats, not me, I abetted, didn't execute." The guard, alerted by Hastings, stepped forward. "Enabling's crime enough." Handcuffs clicked. Carlotta's wrists bound as confessions poured. The alliances fractured, each role in the web exposed. "We sought justice," she murmured, "but it twisted into this." Upstairs, the library exhaled as she was led away, the rain easing to a drizzle that pattered like applause, illusions fractured like sun-baked clay. Ronald embraced Donald in shared remorse, their pact dissolved. Carlotta's removal quelled the paranoia, forging uneasy bonds as truths bled like ink from a broken pen. Hastings marveled. Alliances mended, Poirot. The detective regarded the flames. Mended, but scarred. The blood lingers, a stroke for the final reckoning. The mansion lapsed into uneasy tranquility, rain pattering like fingers on vitre. Poirot's inquiry intensified. The chapter's entanglements bridged, dynamic revelations propelling toward the plot's reckoning. Chapter 5. The Curse's Reckoning. The ancient banyan tree at the heart of the Tim Kendall plantation stood as an eternal guardian, its massive trunk twisted like the gnarled hands of time itself, aerial roots dangling like threads from a loom weaving the island's forgotten tales. The midday sun filtered through the canopy in dappled patterns, casting a mosaic of light and shadow on the soft earth below, where trade winds murmured through the swaying fronds like a chorus of absolutions. Miss Jane Marple had chosen this spot with deliberate care, a natural amphitheatre where the sea's distant roar provided a soothing underscore, and the air carried the sweet, heady scent of frangipani blossoms mingling with the salty tang of the ocean. It was here, under nature's impartial gaze, that the final threads of malice would be unraveled, the curse's grip loosened forever. The survivors assembled in a loose semicircle around the banyan's base, their faces a gallery of etched emotions, weariness from sleepless vigils, wariness from shattered trust, and a glimmer of hope that flickered like the sunlight through leaves. Major Palgrave sat on a weathered bench, his pith helmet tilted back, his rotund frame an anchor of familiarity. Evelyn Hillingdon, the flamboyant hostess, perched on a fallen log, her tropical prince now subdued in a simple white blouse that clung to her like a surrender flag. Edward Hillingdon, the brooding archaeologist, leaned against the trunk, his sun-leathered hands clasped as if in prayer. And Rosalie Otterbourne, the secretive maid, stood slightly apart, her uniform crisp but her eyes shadowed by unspoken burdens. The local inspector hovered at the periphery, his uniform starched, notebook poised like a weapon of finality. Miss Marple arrived last, her steps light across the leaf-strewn ground, a parasol shielding her from the sun's intensity, her straw bag swinging gently like a pendulum marking the end of an era. "Dear friends," she began, her voice a serene melody rising above the wind's whisper. We gather beneath this venerable banyan, its roots delving deep into the soil of generations, much like the roots of envy and greed that have poisoned our idyllic retreat. No more shadows today, only the clear warmth of understanding. Let us interlace the sinister strands one final time, for the curse's venom has spent its fury. They settled, the earth firm and alive beneath them, birdsong a distant serenade underscoring her words. She commenced with the tropical omen, that fateful scream on the beach where Tim Kendall's body washed ashore like flotsam from a storm-tossed ship. It began as whispers, tales of an ancient artifact, deaths veiled as curses, but escalated to deadly acts, a smokescreen billowing to obscure the true hunger, greed, gnawing like a parasite in paradise's fruit. Edward leaned forward, his voice rough as sand. The artifact, jade idol from my digs, cursed, superstition. Miss Marple's smile was gentle, yet piercing. Superstition, or a convenient shroud for motive. She transitioned seamlessly to the whispers of the reef, her gestures painting the air. Financial desperation and vendettas entwined like coral branches, the plantation's debts crushing like waves on rock. Rosalie nodded slowly, her secretive nature aligning with the tale. Debts drove alliances. Miss Marple inclined her head. Alliances poisoned by ambition, the bloodied shell on the path, a forgery to invoke fear. But the real toxin lay in pacts formed in hidden coves. The revelations of the fatal lagoon surfaced next, her words evoking the lagoon's still waters hiding treacherous depths. Suspicions surged like tides, but the lagoon's taint, the overdoses veiled as despair, served to clear paths for the covetous. Evelyn's blouse fluttered in the breeze. The rum, tainted to silence, Miss Marple affirmed. Silence witnesses, yes, but the dummy's haunts, a ruse to erode sanity, all threads converging on one weaver. Her gaze settled on Evelyn Hillingdon, who straightened, her flamboyance now a brittle shell. Mrs. Hillingdon, or should I say, Evelyn Kendall, the unacknowledged heir. The banyan's leaves rustled as if in gasp, the wind picking up like a gathering storm. Evelyn's laugh was forced, a shatter in the tranquility. Absurd. Hillingdon by marriage. Miss Marple's tone remained tranquil. Marriage, yes, but to a distant cousin, concealing your bloodline to the Kendalls. The overlooked amulet in your jewelry box, engraved with blood-red symbols, EK for Evelyn Kendall, a relic from your slain grandmother, whose fortune Tim usurped. The group drew breath sharply, Edward's hands unclasped. Her incentive, Miss Marple proceeded, her voice threading the narrative like a needle through fabric. Ambition voracious, anchored in a vendetta for that grandmother, envenomed subtly at a familial feast, deemed tropical fever but suspected villainy. You wed into the circle for vengeance, bided seasons as the plantation faltered, the slayings, facades of curse, drownings staged as mishaps, tamperings to claim the relic unopposed. Rosalie inhaled softly. The artifacts, your excavations. Miss Marple nodded. A veneer to implicate others, Edward's digs, Rosalie's whispers, all puppets in your scheme to inherit unchallenged. Evelyn's shell cracked, her voice a venomous hiss cutting the wind. Unchallenged, deserved, Tim pilfered my grandmother's legacy, envenomed her with those essences to seize it. I endured, forged bonds to infiltrate, awaited the opportune guest, the island a masterful snare, summoned dread with screams, tamper to obliterate traces. Admissions cascaded, a torrent unstemmed, the coalitions corrupted to fabricate alibis, the dummy spectres to erode resolve, the toxins manipulated to mute inquisitive voices, propelled by fatal fixation, equity soured into avarice, phantoms exacting blood. The inspector stepped forward, his boots resounding on the earth like fate's drum. Mrs. Hillingdon, you're detained for the homicides of Tim Kendall and others, plus forgery and tampering. Handcuffs shimmered, clicking with finality around her wrists. She cast a final, penetrating glance at the assembly. Edward's bowed head, Rosalie's wide eyes, Palgrave's grim nod. Ere being escorted away, her footfalls diminishing into the plantation's embrace like a withdrawing wraith. In the subsequent hush, relief flourished like the banyan's fresh shoots after rain. Edward proffered a hand to Rosalie. Bonds severed, yet perchance reforged in verity. The maid grasped it, her secretive veil lifted. A novel dawn, sans maledictions. Palgrave lit his pipe at last. Island justice served. Hastings. Wait. Lucy embraced Miss Marple. Aunt Jane, you've navigated us to secure haven. The sleuth adjusted her parasol, regarding the sunlit sea. Haven, yes, with no tempest persisting. The island purged, voyages renewed. They tarried beneath the banyan as servants brought refreshments, fresh fruits, chilled juices, a ritual of renewal. Dialogues shifted from hazard to schemes. Edward's digs reclaimed honestly. Rosalie's duties lightened. Palgrave's tales revived. The inspector clasped Miss Marple's hand. Your discernment, ma'am, legendary. She beamed modestly. Discernment? Human nature's motifs, Inspector. Watchfulness disentangles them. As the ensemble dispersed into the sun-dappled paths, the plantation's trails echoing with lighter steps, Miss Marple boarded a jeep for the airport, her valise buoyant, the narrative sealed in resolute serenity. No conundrums unresolved, solely the tender victory of scrutiny over iniquity, the curse eternally interred.